everyone. Happy Thursday. It is the Back to the Explicit Measures Podcast with Tommy, Mike, and Seth. And we are here to talk about just some new fun Power BI stuff. Today's main topic will be you're given $100 to invest it however you want in PowerBI.com service. Pick what you want to build. But before we jump into the main topic, I think there's a kind of a cool announcement. Seth, I think you picked up on something here recently. This was last week, I believe on September 8th, that was announced. Give us a kind of a rundown. What did you see, and why is this important for us to know about?
Yeah, I'm sure there have been other posts around how Premium Gen 2 is just increasing the value of Power BI kind of exponentially, right? And this is one of those where Alon is talking about or sharing that exporting Power BI report objects from embedded or premium scenarios has just been like modified significantly, right? So prior to this, you could export like a PDF of a Power BI report like 50 times an hour or something like that, because there were limitations on the capacity that you were using. And apparently, like, they're almost removing this completely, right? To the point where now it's like 50 per minute, right? So if you think about concurrent users and how many pages could be being downloaded throughout an organization or in an embedded solution, this post outlines some of the changes that are now available to Gen 2 users, right, with Gen 2 capacities. It's pretty significant. It's an exciting announcement. So I just wanted to point it out. It's about a week late, but it just shows you that we don't catch everything on the day it's released.
Well, there's so much to catch. There's so much changing all the time, and sometimes certain things happen, and you don't let it sink in until you actually read some of the read the article, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's actually a much larger thing than we thought initially. And I think again, a lot of things here I think is the API is being built in a way it's on top of a Gen 2 feature set. So again, Gen 2 allows more of this auto scaling or scaling up and down. It kind of gives you more flexibility to be able to use more capacity. I think Gen 2 is also around, initially was you buy capacity from Microsoft and you have to manage that capacity if it's being overutilized or not. Gen 2 is allowing Microsoft to manage more of that capacity for you. And it's giving a bit more flexibility. So if there are peak loads or peak things that are causing things to slow down, Microsoft's more about managing that. And you're seeing this shift from Gen 1 to Gen 2. Gen 1 was really about memory, limitations on memory and model sizes. Gen 2 is less about memory sizes and more about cores, which I think makes a lot more sense, because if in the traditional SQL world, everyone was worried about how many cores of SQL did you have, because more cores meant more capacity to run larger SQL databases.
So, well, this combined with the scanner API and all the enhancement they've done, there's a lot of use cases where you can easily kind of automate getting the data set that you need, or even for a user, providing a user interface to export.
Yes.
Or to download the PNG, because I think before it was still very much that the developer wanted to do it, but you can really create some front-facing applications for a user with these combinations now that make it really powerful.
Did we ever do a podcast on Gen 1 to Gen 2?
Ooh,
add it to the list.
We really should. We should.
We talked about it a number of times actually, and we probably should go through kind of like the benefits and the differences in architecture between Gen 1 and Gen 2.
It's so big.
It's different.
Yeah.
I won't derail too much.
No worries.
Like, man, I don't know. Man, we should spend some time talking about that.
So wrapping up here, the Power BI report API. So that one. So in the article they talk about we expect the Power BI export report API to become GA, generally available, in November of 2021. So it's kind of coming out now. You can play with it now. They're looking for customers participating in the private preview and getting some valuable feedback, but they're going to reach more of a broad audience to that come October 2021. So it's coming up soon. All right, with that. All right, let's talk about our main topic today. So main topic today is going to be you're given $100 to invest in PowerBI.com, the service. How do you break that $100 apart, and where do you spend your money on various aspects of the service? Tommy, kick us off, and let's go through your ideas first. We'll just kind of list all your ideas and what you would spend your money on, and then we'll react to it, and then we'll just move on to the next person. So Tommy, take it away. Give us your breakdown of your $100.
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite segments to do, the speculating side, kind of like
Yeah.
really to say if I had that budget. Again, not saying this is from a professional point of view, but I think from someone who, you know, but for someone who uses it as an author, and then you also hear the feedback from a consumer, the point of for me as I went into looking at $100 to spend or where I put a budget
Yep.
for features to be invested, it was kind of the twofold of what does a consumer need to have a better experience and therefore to continue to go back to Power BI, and then what does the pro and the admin need to better kind of deliver that experience. So the number one part of this, and $30 that I'm putting out of my 100, starts with apps and Power BI apps,
Mhm.
and it's really the customization side. So features, a little more intricate branding and theming of an app, and just a better user experience for the app. So that's where I'm putting my first $30. My $25 next, I'm putting into two things. It's going to be the admin side. So better admin control. I know they have the toggles right now, but really allowing more intricate enablement for the customization of the service from an admin point of view, whether it's putting things in certain places on Power BI Home. It's
Okay.
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
modifying more of the homepage.
A little more, yeah, and content for the creators. Another $25 I'm doing is into goals. So I know they just came out with two
Sure.
updates with goals in the
Yep.
last in the last few blog posts, but I want to put more money into that because I think it's such a powerful feature with still a lot of potential. So that how that ties in, putting $15 into tooltips and what I'm calling tooltips or support for users during their usage in Power BI. Like, so we'll kind of get into that. And then the
Yep.
last $5 I'm putting just into some Canvas enhancements for when a user's on the report page.
So explain to me. I'm not sure I understand exactly. So tooltips is a word that's used in desktop, and when you say tooltips, I think of a hover tooltip.
Yes.
But you're not communicating that. You're talking more like information buttons, or helping users who are trying to interact with the report, give them more kind of training and automation around.
Right.
Hey, you're trying to here. Did you know there's drill through? This is how you use it, and make it more intuitive. On Microsoft, basically teaching individuals who are trying to consume just reports,
and
easier.
not just in the report. This is part of like if you ever like downloaded an app and like that kind of like it's like, hey, here's your 5 tips, click on here, do this kind of thing. So it's kind of like that, and it's the report too, but it's also especially the user experience when they get to home, to kind of highlight.
There's a feature that's called a feature set that's actually inside when you build an app.
Yeah,
it's like an actual, I don't know what the name, I can't remember the name of it, but there's actually an actual feature that does, this is like the walkthrough, the tutorial mode, where you, as soon as you land on it, you can then click different areas on the screen and say, here's what this means, here's what that means. And it's kind of like the first time you log into it, you have to go through this tutorial mode. And then once you're done that, then you can say dismiss and be done.
Right.
Because you can do that today with bookmarks, but it's not easy to do.
Yeah, with bookmarks they'll show you, or the a few other features they'll show you, but I want it more outside of the report.
Yeah.
And I also want, like, again, when a user is using Power BI, like if I need to kind of just help, like I'm not sure exactly where I'm at, a little more descriptive information or a little more pop-up, so to speak, on what I can do.
Cool. What is this Canvas enhancements? I'm not sure I understood your comment on that one.
So it's a little money towards it, but it's just a few things with the toolbar. I think it's a little more with also kind of, you could call it the service, but it's how tooltips look, or the ability to interact with the visual for the user. Like right now, a lot of the options are on the ellipses in a visual.
Yeah.
So kind of just enhancing that a little, make it a little more forefront.
Sure.
And then just like from the pages, if you have to do the collapse, expand, and filters in on the pages.
Yep.
Just enhancing that a little, and also the toolbar and what the options are available.
Okay.
But I one thing I'll focus on real quick is, again, the bulk of the money I put on the apps. And again, we really haven't seen a lot of major updates to apps in quite a while.
That's true.
So, one of our first episodes was on Power BI apps and using it. And it's still something that we use today, and that people, the feedback that we get is absolutely positive all around.
Yep.
But as I use it, I can get frustrated because I think there's still a lot more things that you could do from the creator to enhance someone's experience. Because and I can go through the things that I would improve on that, but I think the first thing, the ability to brand and customize the app, just the look and feel of it, I think should be something that allows a lot more customization. Bring in some of the features from Power Apps almost that you can do, or at least the UI. I is where I would really start. Make the UI a lot better for a user, because right now, if you choose a color, which you only have, I believe, 12 colors to choose from, it's literally that color with a little slightly highlighted more color on what page you're on. And it's very hard to see what report you're on, or if that's a page or a report.
Yep.
And usually if a report has a lot of pages, that makes it much more difficult to see all the reports underneath it. So it's one of those, the whole theory of scroll, like, the likelihood that you'll click on something if it's out of screen.
Yep.
That's one of the things that I don't know exactly what I would do. That's where I would get a developer involved. But how do you improve that experience? If I'm looking at a report, the top report.
Oh, you wouldn't get a developer involved. So
Okay.
you go straight to the UI UX team, and you're like, hey, UI UX team, tell me how this looks better. And then after you figure it out with them, then you go give it to a developer and say, okay, now make what this guy made pretty and make it look exactly like they made it. But I'm with you.
Yeah. Because part of the power of apps is I'm in a report, but I can easily get to other reports.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
if I have a report with 8 pages, let's say, it makes it very hard to see. Like, one, if you especially have the sections, which are huge, but that ability for the discovery is where I would really want to focus. And again, so it's really that discovery side of it, and then the UI.
Awesome.
You said admin control.
Yeah.
Like customization. Is that specifically related to like the browsing pages, like how look and feel of?
Yeah. So the browse from the admin side, like we have the tenant level settings, which are great. I would kind of
you mean so today. Let's talk about like what you can do today. Today you can change like the top header bar color. You can put like a little logo on the top part of Power BI, but like that's just generally for every user who shows up into PowerBI.com. That's kind of what you just get.
Right.
You don't get the ability of saying like, I'm going to auto pin these various reports on the homepage.
You can say featured.
Yeah,
or do that.
You can feature them, correct?
Right.
But other than that, you really get little to no customization on. Yeah, you get really there's no per user level customization that we can push out to people. So I'm the admin. I know what you're going to land on that homepage. I don't have any content I can really cater on that page to make it more like friendly. And Tom, you know what your users need. Let's design the front that main homepage to be more custom for what you need it to be doing.
Right. Also, they also have like apps that you should try. It's like, I don't want them to try these. Like,
that's true. Turn that off.
So turn some of the features off that, and they have like all the tutorials how to use it. It's like, well, maybe I just want to show them how to use Power BI, not how to create a report.
Oh, that's good.
Because I don't, again, that's part of the user experience, but like they'll have like the Azure cost app kind of things. Like, well, I don't want anyone to install this.
This is also the difference between like you, Tommy, your team, your BI team more manages the entire experience. Whereas I think Microsoft's perspective is everyone's a creator. And if you're showing up to PowerBI.com, they want you to have a pro license and they want you just to build things. I mean, that's what they want. I mean, realistically, but
I'm not laughing at you.
Oh, okay. But I feel like there's a missing user role here that you're trying to design for. You're trying to design for almost that viewer or just consumer or a reader role.
The majority of people use my reports.
The majority of people. And again, I think in your team, right? It's a centralized team of BI, and not every organization is like that. But you have that centralized location, and then you have like a larger number of just consumers of stuff.
Well, no, the majority of companies, the majority of people are going to be using. They're not going to be creating. If you got 100 people at a company, I don't think you have 75 people creating reports.
I think, Tommy, you make a good point, right? I was chuckling at first because of every business user I know, you're like the most IT. I want to stick controls.
Exactly.
That is not IT.
Exactly.
Which is why I'm laughing. Enterprise. I'm a team.
BI,
I want to control.
BI
right?
is business intelligence.
Tommy's all about governance. Tommy's all about governance.
Process.
There's a gate. It's called Tommy.
It's called structure.
And I'm not 100% against that. However, I think you do strike a good chord, right, from the standpoint that regardless, a large swath of Power BI consumers are just that, consumers.
Correct.
Right? They don't have any interest in building a report. They're not going to. So it would almost, in my mind, it would make sense to have them choose the dummy portal, right? Like,
Yep.
hey, we have two experiences. One is
The dummy portal.
you can create whatever you want. And the second is like, I want the consumer portal. I want you to remove all of these things that I'm never going to use. And I just want you to show me in a very clean, simplified way the reports I can go click on and consume. And that's all I want to see.
No, and I'll take that and run with it, where it can be confusing on what a person should do, and depending on, again, like that persona.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, if you're a sales rep, I don't want one. They can create a report, but that's not the experience I want to give them, because you know what they want to do? They want to just get what's important to them quickly, especially an executive.
Agreed.
Do you want to show your executive team how to create a report? You could, or you can highlight more of the quick items like the scorecard on goals, or you can highlight your dashboards or the the corporate reports. And then how to use it, because usually those people, or not usually, but you run into people where they will be overwhelmed quickly if there's filters or icons when they just need their numbers.
I think this also speaks to like how you consume the content, right? So I think there's a good story here around, not every report needs to be rendered in PowerBI.com. I think a lot of stuff makes more sense here when you start moving over to Teams, and you start looking at, like, if you want some more of that custom catered experience, putting Power BI reports in a SharePoint site is kind of a good idea in that case, because now you can kind of. So now I have more control about like what kind of content I want to present. And I've done this before where I've built like links to SharePoint pages that have single reports on each of those pages, and it gives you that more of that. Again, it's still kind of a catered experience. You still have row level security, all those kind of other good things that we need from PowerBI.com, but it gives you a bit more control around, taking away some of the extra peripheral of what Power BI is and boiling it down to this is
so
just
now
the
you're
report.
telling me I have to go to multiple locations to view my reports?
You consume reports anywhere, man.
It's well,
like the whole point, like anytime anytime somebody goes like, I build it in SharePoint, like my gut reaction is, because but that comes from, it could be I'm just scarred.
It's scarred from the old
SharePoint 2010 was the only way I could surface up report and surface up report.
Right.
You built this monstrosity.
I don't want to associate SharePoint Power BI ever.
Right. Me neither. However,
I think it's
Tommy,
a good solution.
Like there is I think a point which I think Microsoft is doing a really good job of, which is bring the reporting, bring the data to
where
the people where they are.
I think Teams is another good option.
Teams, SharePoint, like if you live in SharePoint, and surfacing up reports in SharePoint makes sense. If you live in Teams, like I do, like having a one click away where it's just part of the app and I can go select something, awesome, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I would agree with that. But again, for companies who also don't use Teams, it took long enough to get the adoption for people to bookmark Power BI on their browser.
Let's be honest.
To say go to powerbi.com, home to this is where your content lives.
Let's be honest here though. Any company who's not using Teams, you're dead to Microsoft. You're dead to me, because Microsoft wants you to use Teams.
They're not there yet. But it's just still reality. You can't. I mean, like, I know organizations that don't use Teams. You're
saying the deployment of Power BI out of the service could be simplified.
I think it absolutely.
Your life a lot. Okay.
I think you could easily. The ideal point of view, and that's why I put that $25 into it, is you can say, like, I want a pro, like someone very advanced that I want to show a certain interface to, or at least features to. I want someone who can meddle, so to speak, or is comfortable in it. And I want someone who, they need baby steps, or they need to easily walk through where their content is.
Yep.
Because, and I agree, give the data where people are at, right? But some companies, they don't have the centralized team system. Yeah, right.
Talk about being able to have full control of navigating that experience. I mean, you have again. I'll get off that
I
kickstand.
want to so disagree with that because we tried.
Hey, you could also go
a
to the
hidden page with no sub pages.
Hey, you can also go to Power App Portals if you want and drop stuff in there. But I haven't
So-
been super thrilled with that experience either. That's another way of like catering an experience for what you want, and
You
it gives
can
you
cater,
you can write
But-
HTML.
but the
per
problem is
page.
most people are going to have more than one report they're going to look at. With SharePoint, you're going to have to you're going to just do a scroll down of each report in an embedded view.
No, you
and
make
then-
it you
or
make it look
you're-
good. No, you don't do that. That would be
How do you do
horrible.
multiple pages? You're going to embed the entire experience into SharePoint.
You embed the entire report directly into you.
No,
you embed the entire
there's
app.
more
It's a single app. You have like literally a
Yeah.
homepage with tiles that says App 1, App 2, App 3, or here's your list of apps that you can go through. Sales app, audit app, and so you just kind of
You know
make
how
it easier to consume.
Going back to the app
So you made-
customization,
you-
that's
you
a
made
terrible view.
You made
UI.
Gen 1. You made Gen 1 Power BI, Mike.
.com. Gen 1.
Like you made the old SharePoint tile experience.
People liked it. Again, it was there was a team of people
I'd like to
building
meet these people.
Power BI, a very large company that wanted this, but again, they wanted a super simplified experience. So dropping in some simple reporting, easy to access things, go to this one SharePoint page, all the reports live there. Because it was, and then this was the case of a large consumer number of people, not a lot of people creating. So they only had a very small group of people actually getting in there and building stuff, and they needed a wide range of how do you distribute this. It's either that or you build Power BI embedded. There's really no other option at this point.
They had to have been like, were they heavy SharePoint users already?
Kinda like they were starting to get into more of the SharePoint stuff.
And yeah,
So
and
what?
They were new to a lot of the ecosystem.
All right, I would have avoided SharePoint. But...
today's topic is the role of SharePoint in
Anyway.
Power BI.
All right, we've gone around.
Yeah.
We've gone about 20 minutes
Yeah.
on Tommy's topic. I
Okay.
want to get to Seth's topic. So Seth, give us your rundown. What would be your spend on your items?
All right, from lowest spend to highest spend.
Ooh, switching it
or-
up here.
or highest to lowest.
Go
I should
whatever.
just
Yeah, you go
stick
whatever
to the
way.
Same theme.
Whatever. You
Well,
go whatever
just
direction.
go random.
You want to
Just
go
go
against the
random.
flow. Go
Start
against the
Start with your
flow.
middle.
Yeah. Go from the
Okay,
lowest to the
I could
highest.
do
I don't
We don't
care.
care. We'll do it.
Lowest to highest.
Okay,
All right.
lowest to highest.
I would throw $10 into.
Whoa,
folders
lowest is
and
$10. Sorry, I just
Yeah.
you're starting off with
Look,
throwing some money.
Man, I don't have
Big spender.
I don't have time for all this like little piddly stuff. We just go straight.
We have
straight
set
to the
goals.
dollars.
Sorry. That's
I mean,
amazing.
but Tommy had one $5 one, and the rest were 15, 25.
That's
so,
true. That's
you know.
true. Tommy only had one money one.
Folders and workspaces. So, like, I think
Ooh.
what I'd love to have is kind
Okay.
of more as a report builder. Wow, Tommy.
Yeah.
He's in an earthquake
It's
right now at this
we're
moment.
gonna edit-
live. Hey guys,
I
live
pounded the
from,
table, and this is what happened. Cool. We're back.
Folders and workspaces, or things and objects I can build in a workspace that don't necessarily translate to the front end user, right? Like I don't want them to go searching for reports. However, whether it's an app in a workspace, multiple apps from a workspace,
Sure.
different reports for different audiences in the same workspace, like there's just some organization I'd love to have from
Yep.
a report author perspective.
I can see that one.
And that's where I'd invest the first 10. The second would be $20 towards deployment pipelines that work for all the scenarios of actually deploying thin reports or models and deploying model changes like ALM toolkit, kind of where I have like one thing to the next, or just when we played with it, there were a lot of missing pieces for us to be able to implement it in our solution.
Yeah.
And my dollars would spend if I can deploy things in particular ways in the service, the deployment pipeline should support those ways, because otherwise I have a broken ecosystem where deployment pipelines only work for certain scenarios. And you're not going to get wide adoption when you have gates on a what should be kind of a dev test prod like solution
Yeah.
for enterprises.
Yeah.
So that's a blocker, and I'd invest 20 there. I'd invest 30 in better failure messages, in refreshes for things that are non-gateway.
Wow.
tied.
$30. It's a big
Yeah,
problem.
I mean, you think about like a lot of the challenges organizations have around refreshes, or if you have a timely SLAs, or like what's going on,
Mhm.
and the general like one line in Power BI, just in general, like never gives you the solution.
Or give you an error
In
code.
Power BI, in the gateway, you can go into the gateway logs and you'll
Mhm.
always find the answers.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's usually like you'll get
That's excellent.
you'll get an error in Power BI service that's something like blah blah blah, blah table, is broken
Can't
something column.
compute.
It's got a broken column.
Yeah.
And then you go into the gateway logs if you were working with on-prem,
Yeah.
and sift through a bunch of things, but at some point in time it's like user S Bauer doesn't have permission on the database. So, oh well, somebody removed my permissions on the
Oh,
database. Like
right.
that's the problem.
Yeah.
Right. Like
Yep.
go triage and fix that
Yeah.
myself.
Sure.
There's no visibility into that in the
Mm.
service. So you're burning a lot of time trying to figure out like, okay, what does this obtuse error mean?
Sure.
And it's kind of a burn in a lot of time, especially when you're an admin or trying to solve this on a much larger scale than I even deal with. Like I'd love to have some better messaging around it.
Yep.
And then I'm gonna sink a whole 40, or the remaining 40, into kind of the administrative dashboard, right? And a parallel that I was thinking of recently was, Mike, you and I were talking about, or you were kind of displaying the customization of Azure dashboards,
Yeah.
where you can dig
Yeah.
into any of those services,
Mhm.
pick any of the metrics that you want to see, and create your own custom dashboards of the things that are relevant to you. And like we already have the APIs, we know that. Like, why don't you just give me the ability to select which APIs I want to use?
Wow.
Like, is it user based? Is it, I want to see which areas of usage are most popular? Is it Teams? Is it SharePoint? Is it my embedded solution? Like, what is the activity around
Wow.
those particular areas? Because those are the things we talk about a lot, right? Like, how are my reports being used? How are they being consumed? Who are the biggest users? Like, all that telemetry is there. We know that because the APIs exist, but there's a very simplified experience in Azure already. Like, just give me that ability to create that dashboard and then drill down. So I'd love it if Microsoft would do some of the things that the community has been doing a lot of,
Yep.
and there isn't really a comprehensive solution yet. And the current like report is way too high level.
Yeah.
Like, it's nice and it
Yeah.
kind of gives you some insight, but like that customized dashboard with some of the drill in details, or then I go in and have to execute my own API or something like that,
Yep.
I think would be a game changer.
Oh boy,
to use
bringing out
to
the
use our
words.
to use
Game
our term.
changer.
Yeah.
I
Which
agree with
so
a lot of
where-
those. I think a lot of those statements I resonate very well with. I think
Yeah.
those are very good breakdowns of your where we're seeing problems. And I think you're right. I think there's a lot of just immaturity. I think there's focus on just creating new features and getting some new stuff going. And these are a lot of these like administrative, the pipelines thing. A lot of these things will be similar in my topics as well. I think these are solid feature enhancements.
Yeah, the first thing I want to point out, Seth, that might notice what you said is none of that was from the focus on the user. It was all the admin, the kind of almost the back end side.
Yep.
Let me ask you, like, why did you decide like $100 really on for the pro or the admin and nothing for the consumer? Not saying I disagree, but where did that come from for you?
It comes from using Power BI singularly as the enterprise space, right? Rather than having, some of the other like structures of like Azure Analysis Services, or I mean, it's not like having these pieces solves what I just went through,
Yeah,
right? But that's my space normally.
Mhm.
It's the big things that I think would go a long way in organizations adopting big shifts into just using the Power BI platform. And it takes down the barrier of having to understand or go custom build something that is a standard problem for all companies.
Correct.
Yeah,
I don't even care if you want to charge me for this, right? Like, why don't you just go build it, right? It's not a
Yeah.
custom thing that some community person or an organization or third party, I guess is it doesn't fit that mold for me, right? Like, Microsoft builds platforms and then companies build solutions on top of that exponentially, right? But this is one of those things is like, would you have a third party custom build your your Azure custom dashboard?
Nope.
Maybe they did, but you bought it. It's part of the platform, right?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
in the same way, like that to me is I'm paying for a service, right? And that visibility into what's going on
Man.
is something that I think is more important than what I do believe is a working end solution for consumers, albeit there are tweaks and things that, Tommy, you brought up, which are valid points. I don't think it's broken by any stretch of the imagination. It's just custom building and going and generating APIs to pull together all these metrics that
Yeah.
Microsoft already has. Seems like an area of improvement.
This is really interesting you made that comment, Seth, because Tommy's focusing more on the user side a little bit more than you were, Seth. And I think these are both valid perspectives. I would also say I think what we're seeing here additionally is, Seth, the reason you're feeling that pain from the administration side is that's not really how Microsoft designed this thing. They didn't come into Power BI and say, hey, we're going to build this corporate tool. It's going to be awesome for entire enterprises. They kind of came at this with a, hey, we're going after that Excel base, right? This is like an end user focused tool.
SharePoint.
Yeah, it's like a SharePoint for data. Just kidding.
Which worked out.
Hey, all right, I get it. All right. But I think we're seeing actually, to your point, Seth, though, I think we're seeing a shift a little bit more. I think Microsoft is putting more emphasis on these admin features and API based things, and like Gen 2, and like now we have this embedded reports, and so paginated reports is now at an A1 SKU level, or you can now get it at a lower end of premium, but now you can have, if you're putting it on Gen 2, you get a larger scale of this stuff as well. So I think you're seeing the growth of this, the proliferation of the tool is so much so that now Microsoft is putting a little bit of a refocus on what are the enterprise tools that we need to have in place to make sure that this continues to be a widely adopted and governed, right? There's some new features. I think they now have like data labels on your reports. So Power BI will now adhere to like, hey, I'm going to publish a report and I'm going to say this is company sensitive data. You can't download it. So then the Power BI service will actually adhere to your data policies and say, hey, you're on a computer that's not linked to our service, our PowerBI.com, therefore you cannot download the data. So there's a lot more of that, like data governance, data policies, administration, those things are getting built. And I think Microsoft is working to make it more enterprise grade for you.
Yeah, but they're so interconnected with other services. Like you can't do the data labels unless you have that set up with the Microsoft protection policy.
Oh, but I would expect it to be like that's the value of Azure and the Microsoft protection. Like you want that if you're going to do it on Excel sheets or just random PowerPoint files and you're wherever you put them, right? You need it on. You need that on first so it works everywhere.
Right.
You were going to say something.
You hit on something that strikes me as either the development of Power BI, right, was like the admiration and respect I have for the vision that James Amir, like the guy, all the folks that have been part of like how do we launch Power BI and where does it go?
Yep.
Like what I don't like is amazing, right? Is it that they had this strategy of hit the consumers and build to the enterprise using all our things, or was that a natural evolution?
Of for sure it was.
Right. On.
That's exactly how we're doing it, because that's exactly how Tableau took over the market, right? Initially.
So I agree to some respect, right? But it is something that I would say you and I keyed in on immediately, which is why we started resonating Think Like the Business and Act Like IT, because taking enterprise tools and putting them in a form where business consumers can be the ones that are driving viral adoption.
Yep.
Like this is why and how Power BI got as big as it did, because
totally agree.
Scale.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think there was a lot of, I remember like the first conference, maybe it was just the surprise of how fast it was, being adopted by people.
Yep.
Where this vision we're just catching up to or seeing how it all is coming together. Either way, whatever the case, whether it's a natural evolution of moving from the singular tool business user to enterprise, we're at this stage where this has been on somebody's mind for a while, right? So
agreed.
I think the enterprising of this and that escalation of how you adopt the roadmap, the strategies of how companies can take from business and put it into IT or enterprise spaces, is a fantastic story, and it unifies these otherwise siloed departments,
Right.
significantly. And I think this conversation is certainly like it's the evolutionary part of enterprise. Now that we've got this path, we've got this direction for organizations.
Agreed.
It's just now build in this larger infrastructure so that organizations can support that full solution.
So, one more point on this one, and then I want to get on to the next bucket of monies that we're going to go spend. So, I think Seth, you're right on, and I think here's some concrete examples of where Microsoft's strategy was initially to where it's at now. Initially, when you built a Power BI workspace, you bolted yourself onto the SharePoint groups organization. So Gen 1 workspaces created a bunch of SharePoint sites inside your org without anyone's knowledge. It just happened, right? So again, Microsoft was like, okay, let's get this done fast. Let's get this done easy. Let's get stuff started and get people using it. But what you saw there is after a number of, months, a year, people were like, no way, this is not working. And people started shutting off Power BI and stopping adoption because there were so many SharePoint sites growing inside people's organizations that they couldn't manage it. So I think you initially see like Microsoft, and again, another example I'll put here, when the tool came out, right? Previously, this was SharePoint BI. It was, a plugin for Excel, and then it turned into SharePoint BI for a bit, and then it kind of turned into its own product. I think the reason you saw them pull out this thing to its separate own product was to iterate on this quickly. This, in my opinion, I don't know if there's other tools. This is one of the only tools that Microsoft produces for the business that was free. If you want to get Excel, you got to pay for it. If you wanted to get PowerPoint, you got to pay for it. Like the other standard, Word, you got to pay for it. These are other, what I would say, business-facing tooling that is just standard in the market. And so Microsoft has enough presence there that they can charge you for that service. And then now here comes Power BI, and you can go download desktop for free. And like, to me, that was a big moment where I was like, whoa, what are we doing here? This is something that I've never seen from a Microsoft team before. And I think the nice part about this was you can play with desktop for free for you have a large availability to mess with things and figure things out. And then they get you kind of on the, okay, I'm ready to share this with the team members, because the report just for yourself is not very useful. It starts becoming more actionable and useful when you share it to a team. So I think there was a great point there. They were like, okay, now that you've loved what we're doing, right? Let's get you paying for stuff, and then we'll support it. And now you're seeing, because of the adoption, because of the ease of starting, now you're seeing them come back through and say, okay, now we're going to give more help to the IT team to organize and manage this, because organizations are asking for it.
Yeah. And they had to too, because of the market, the competitive market.
Oh yeah, exactly.
I don't think so though. Like it had to because of the market. Right?
Tableau community is always free.
Right or wrong.
Damo.
I honestly think like Power BI was the first product that I'm aware of that came out of Microsoft that was a direct representation of what Satya was doing to that organization. And like fundamentally, like I know a lot of people that work at Microsoft, and the changes that were happening internally, how they marketed their products,
That's
how
true.
they did different things.
Yep.
And Power BI was the first that I was aware of that was just like, man, this feels like the new Microsoft. Like, they're deploying things at a rapid pace.
Ideas.powerbi.com shows up.
It's free.
Yeah.
And maybe the surprise was how big the community, or how fast people glommed onto it. I don't know, right? It could be all those factors. I just think, to me, it was a breath of fresh air working with, some of the older enterprise tools where it's like you get an update every 6 months, and there's reasons for that, right? Because organizations use these tools for their enterprise,
that's another good example.
It's not like they can or want to adopt that fast.
This is the first tool this is the first tool that did that
away.
Yeah,
right. Said, listen, we're bringing data to the masses, and it
updates
in
monthly,
a way that they could do it, and then it's like, just train, just a full-on train. That has been an exciting ride for sure.
Oh, that's a really good point. That's another good example. There is that the releases came monthly or bi-monthly to the service and to desktop, and I think that
rapid innovation
that pushed them much further down that pipeline of like, we've got a good product, because they were, comparatively, when they came out with Power BI, they were well behind. It was like 10 years behind Tableau. Tableau had already had 10 years on the market before they even like really started getting some momentum, and so they're playing catch up. So they had
Right.
to do something different to kind of innovate and collect ideas
It's
from
the same.
the
It's
market.
yeah. It's the same thing that we do with reporting, though, right? Like
That's
you
true.
want to do rapid iteration. How do you do that? Like technically, they took the market and just made them the test bed,
Yeah, true.
right? Like I think the foundation was solid, and then they were able to rapidly change based on the feedback that
Good
they were
point.
getting,
Yep.
like where the biggest pain points are, and then you're just monthly just cranking out all of these fixes, all these changes,
Yeah.
and
That's a good
wading
point.
through. And I think they did it extremely well.
Good points.
The one thing I'm worried
what are your
about,
okay.
yeah, I gotta say, the one thing I'm worried about is as they continually create features now, um, is I hope that they continue to build on it rather than release, like it's almost like a turn and burn, like goals, deployment pipelines, apps. Like we haven't seen major updates to these, or like kind of the final vision of what they need to be. So
Truthful, I mean, the team's also getting larger too, right? They're hiring more people. The team is growing. I see a lot of like, hiring a new PM, maybe people
Yeah.
are shifting around a little bit too, but I think you're going to see more because the team's growing in size. I think you're going to have more of these like extra features or additional features show up. But to your point, Tommy, there comes a point in time where the surface area of the feature set becomes so thin that you
Yeah.
start getting a feature that's built, and if it's not getting like goals may come out, but if we see the value in it and it doesn't get wide adoption, no more dollars are going to be allocated to continue to improve that. So it's going to kind of get stale in this place unless, again, I think it's all about this
But-
MAU, monthly active users, right? If we know that there's 100, whatever, 80% of our users are using this other feature, well, they're going to go develop that in that, and they're not going to come back and refine goals because there's not enough growth.
But if I have an
on the monthly
unfinished
active users.
product, right, you can't say that the user, that's where we're going to dictate our dollars because it's not ready yet, or it doesn't have the features that was intended for.
I'm gonna disagree with you there because nothing's ever finished. There's never a fully finished product, and you can't come out day one with a fully finished product anyways. So what you look for is you get something out there that's useful, an MVP or minimal viable product, and then you see what the adoption looks like. If people start adopting and glomming onto it, then there's a whole bunch of ideas that come around it, and it's like people start putting their input into it. And at that point in time, if you start seeing that monthly active users continually tick up or grow, then you've got something of a winner here, and you start kind of adding some feature sets around it and enhancing it and keep it working to better.
Are you using deployment pipelines now?
No, but I think it wants to be. I really, really want it to be better.
So, but by your logic, then they should just shut down deployment pipelines because we're not using it.
All right, so
we're all saying, okay, yeah,
this is good.
We're getting off.
This is good though.
Okay,
this is the transition that I want to have because this is one of my ideas actually. So this is to your point right here. So let's go into that one next. So let's jump into my ideas. So I'll do top dollars down to small dollars. So my biggest investment here, and again, I'm gonna go all the way back to episode 1. Episode 1, we talked about. Tommy knew it.
DAX in the service.
DAX in the service. So I'm gonna go straight up $40. I'm gonna put it on. So a couple things here. I like Power Query. I like data flows. I like the whole analysis services integration thing. So there's another story here that's like Synapse plus Power Query plus analysis services, and you think of those 3 different tools. I think there needs to be a tighter collection of how those things work. I like Power Query because it's very easy for it to be used by anyone, and it's a very good data engineering tool, and it does 90% of like what you need to do with data engineering.
Right.
Select columns, filter out data, merge stuff together. Like it does a great job, and a lot of that can actually fold down to like a SQL server. You can query fold it to the back end. I really like data flows because it allows me to then schedule a single table to refresh on whatever cadence I want it to be, and I can share that data set across all things. I'm looking at things from an enterprise architecture standpoint. I'm playing in Synapse, and I'm building tables of data in Databricks and in Spark. So to me, this feels almost the exact same thing. I'm grabbing data, I'm writing it down to a data lake somewhere, I'm picking up that data again with another data flow, and I'm making groomed or bronze, silver, gold levels of data, and I'm maturing that data. So I just want to see a tighter coupling of all those services. Honestly, you could take data flows the way it is and bundle it right into Synapse. And so I want this grow up store to be better.
That would be awesome.
So I want to be able to bring data from anywhere. I want to be able to on the back end compute it however I want. If I want to use Databricks, I want to make tables of it, and I want to stick them in a data flow. And then I want to be able to pick up the data with a data flow and incrementally read the partitions and just get it into my analysis services model. So I want that whole story to be like this is also part of my, like, I want the grow up story to be better, right? I want to be able to say Power Query is integrated, analysis service is so well integrated that I can start it in data flows and we can say one button press and I can promote that directly into a Synapse IT based environment that has different support. I can give ownership of what I built, that the good thing that I built, and hand it over to another team, and then I know it just works. So there, I want that grow up story to go from I'm a business user, and even oh gosh, there's so many things here. I want to go from like Power Query in desktop and say that was good, but I need to lift that whole Power Query directly over to data flows. Like that might be a first step. Just do that.
Mm-hmm.
I know we've talked with a number of users from some Milwaukee businesses, and that's what their complaint is. Like, we have multiple users loading the same dimension table in multiple reports, and so we're wasting memory and space and everything by having the same dimension table continually loaded in multiple smaller reports. And if we just were able to centralize it more, it would be easier for everyone, and we don't have to worry about all these other like edge cases and things. We have the one story of the truth. So that's where I'd spend $40. Number 2, I would spend another $20 in modeling the service. So doggone it, I can data flows it, I can build a report page, but I can't add a stinking measure. Like, come on, like this is not rocket science. We have the XML endpoint. Put me on premium and let me have the 2 tabs that I need, the data tab and the modeling tab, right in the service. So I think that solves a lot of problems there. I think that's another really big win, that if we can start, bring some more of the desktop features right to service, and I think this solves 2 problems. I think it allows you to do better data versioning and controlling of that data model inside the service because it's cloud scale, right? They've already got analysis services backups built into your premium, right? So if you tag a workspace, you can back up your data models every day if you want. So if you make a mistake, you can go get it out. The BIM is a controlled standard that Microsoft knows how to handle. That should just be saved somewhere and just live in the service. There's a lot of things there that I'm like, doggone it, just give me it there. And so I don't want to have to be able to connect to an XML endpoint and go into tabular editor all the time. Well, I love the tool. That is probably by far the most premium tool I've seen out there to do any kind of data modeling manipulation. But like, why isn't that just in the service? So that's my one part there. I'll spend $20 on that, and then $10 on just straight up data lineage. Right? I've got a model, and I may have a data flow. I don't care what it is. I need to see down to the visual level what fields are used where, period. Get me from a model to what the report is doing, because it's such a pain, and you have to use a whole bunch of third-party tools to clean up any models. There's not a good technique, or even being able just to flag a column. Like, just let me take one of the columns or measures and flag it as this is deprecated, and then I can go back and do some testing and clean it up and get rid of it. I don't know how this works, but that whole lineage piece is not there yet. I need better tracking of the lineage. I will, however, say that the tabular editor C# script from Michael from the Microsoft product team apparently does this to some degree and documents it for us. So that's a good starting point, but I feel like that needs to be more open to the masses. It's not scalable in the tabular editor C# script, just not, or C.NET script, or whatever, C# script. Not scalable. The next thing along with that would be I need Devops for all reports. So this is going to tag into your comment there, Tommy. The promotion of pipelines is a good idea. Pipelines is a great idea. I think it works very well for what we need to do. However, I don't think the team understands all the realistic use cases of what that pipeline actually needs to do. So yes, we've got 3 different workspaces. Yes, I can promote a model and a report through there, but I doggone it, I need 2 workspaces. I need one workspace for just models. I need one workspace for just visuals. And I need to be able to promote through either both of those pipelines or any combination thereof of what reports and what models get moved to different things. I know it's all there. The APIs all exist to translate which reports are pointing at what models. So just make it work. Again, to your point, Tommy, are we using pipelines? No, we're not. Because I think there were some core features. It was released, in my opinion, too early, and there were some core features that were missing right out of the gate, and you're not going to get monthly active adoption because they're not there. Now, goals, I think, is different, because I think goals was a separate idea in itself. Again, I don't use it as much, right? So do I use goals on a daily basis now? No. I demo it. I don't use it. So that might be just, I don't understand it well enough to know how to get goals working in a way that is like appropriately demoable.
What you just said about pipelines is the same exact thing I feel about goals.
Okay.
So that's the only thing I'll say. But
Okay.
continue.
All
I'll
right.
let you keep on.
Okay. $5 on better integration with Excel. Okay. Let me explain here a little bit what I'm thinking about this one. Excel on pivot tables. So what you can do right now is you can make a data model. You can put it in the service. I can connect to that service model with pivot table, and I can have that refresh. I can even publish that Excel report back into the service. And then as the data model refreshes, the Excel table and pivot table will also refresh according to that data model. Big win. I think this is huge. What I really want, though, is I want to be able to embed a table from that same data model back into my Power BI report. So tables are the bane of our existence inside Power BI. This experience today is just not. I understand tables as if they're built in Excel. Period. That's how I love tables. You did, Seth. You did. But I really would love to see there's got to be a tighter coupling between getting that Excel table out and getting it directly into Power BI. I need features. I need to filter by column, plain and simple. I need to be able to pick a filter on a column name and just filter it. I want totals. I need paging of things. Now, again, Excel doesn't do paging of data or tables of paged data, but I feel like that would be something that we should be able to figure out or something along those lines. And if that Excel file is pointing at the same data model, the rest of my data model is, I should be able to select stuff in the report and auto filter the data model that the Excel table or sheet is looking at. So I feel like that would be a good compromise. I have a ton of customization techniques inside tables. I can color things. I can auto format it based on what the cell's doing. I feel like there's a lot of stylizing things I can lift away from Power BI Desktop and push into Excel, which is already really good at those things. And it's been doing that for freaking 30 years. So it's good at tables. So I'd like to see better integration there. I'm going to see true auto scaling. So $5 more on the auto scaling space. So we have Azure SKUs or EM SKUs, or, we need to have this more of an auto scaling inside the service. I think I'd like to see more development there, making it easier for us to administer and have kind of capacity-based Azure SKU ramp up or ramp down, more of an IT focused. I'm administering a premium capacity. Help me make that easier for me to ramp up things and ramp down things, and even suggest to me hey, this workspace or these workspaces are requiring a lot of demand. We recommend in the early morning at midnight, ramp this up to an A3. Do it for 3 hours and then ramp it down to an A2 the rest of the day so it runs the reports. I want some more tuning things there. Again, maybe this is Microsoft's vision for auto scaling already, but give me more of a pay-as-you-go model, I think. I think that's what I would rather consume. Microsoft, you manage it on the back end. I'll pay you a little bit more for the service if you can just kind of make it go, and then it charges me based on capacity. And the last one I'll probably put out here, I got another 2 more $5 ones. $5 for downloading reports. So if I'm asking for full build reports in the service, if I build a report in the service, please let me download it. It's just, I don't know what you're doing on the back end that is so different when you're building a report in the service that you can't download it. There must be some complicated thing. But if I have to create a report locally on my machine, upload it first, then I could edit in the service, and then I can still download it. Why can't I just start the report in the service, edit it, and then just download it? So I'd like
penalizing you for using the service.
Again, I can't just use the service solely if you're gonna keep penalizing me there. So, anyways, that's another $5 on that. And then the last thing I would say, it's about more corporate controls. So for the end user, corporate theming across reports. So again, unifying that experience. We have corporate standards. This is how we're going to do bar charts and line charts and things like that. So when you have a team of people working together, and particularly in embedded spaces where I have a consistent app look and feel, I have a harder time getting that team aligned without broader standards across all my Power BI stuff. So that's kind of my breakdown. Any surprises there, Tommy? Tommy was not surprised about the modeling the service.
I would say the only thing I'm surprised about is you may need a few extra bucks on some of your items. I think the $10 for Lineage, I think that's going to be a little more of an investment to kind of get exactly how you want it. So because they have the Lineage now, but if you want to go down to the column, especially again looking at the scanner API and what it gives you, that in a format or in an interface that you would want that would actually be actionable, I think probably would take more back end work on Microsoft's side.
Oh, I
The
don't,
devs and the DevOps too. I think that's a huge investment.
I'm not saying. I mean, so
Yeah.
again, I just need to see more movement on those things being better or getting better. So like,
Mhm.
I'm thinking maybe like, okay, full data lineage. I'm thinking maybe it's like Purview. Like Purview, I think has like a good start on this. Like
Good idea.
I
Yeah.
can see like SQL Server. I can see some tables. I can start seeing. I think we can see now down into the model and like, okay, Purview will now give you like, okay, here's the model. Here's all the columns and things that are in there. But I just need one or two more hops deeper than that.
Mhm.
I need to go, okay, let's go one step further into here's the report now, and then here's all the visuals and the thin. Okay, another challenge here:
Mhm.
model measures and thin report measures. I need to see all of them and make decisions on where they need to move. So that's another area where if I had a tool or if I'm doing better data lineage, I could say, oh look, I've got so many thin measures here that might actually make sense in multiple reports. Or I can look at multiple thin reports and say, oh, doggone it, we got a lot of common measures in these
Right.
things. Let's make them similar. And so let's take an action item or come back, make some item to the backlog and fix that stuff. So I think the data lineage thing is actually very important, but it needs to span the model,
Right.
the model, any reports that have models in them, and then all the thin reports, and then all the
Right.
way down to like these are the actual measures and columns that are used anywhere in the report. If they're
Yes.
used anywhere, we have to keep them. Everything else I could throw away. All right, those are my things. Seth, looks like you got an idea.
I like all those are really good points.
The-
Can't really argue with all of them.
The-
But to Tommy's point, I think you're cheating a bit. Like I want everything, and here's $5, right? Like, in terms of like where your money, where your mouth is.
Well,
Yeah.
I-
Because it's one of those like with the DevOps thing. Like if they're gonna release that, just kind of like what they did with pipelines. There's some features I agree with you, Mike, that to our earlier point before you could release it and then build on it. But I think
Correct.
there's other we'll call them applications that if you're gonna release it, it might not necessarily be GA, but it better be a working version both for the user from the back end and the front end. That needs to be something that can be put in use now. And I think if you, especially the DevOps, and I think pipelines and goals are in the same bucket here, where
Steve Campbell on Power BI Tips built a DevOps on SharePoint. Like he
Yeah.
literally built the exact thing that I want. It's
Right.
It's literally like so literally this is where I think this is a great idea, right? So a report is just a report. It's just a PBIX file. And if you're doing thin reports, these things get really small and not hard to move around. So all I need is like a landing place that say, okay, let me publish this report. Well, just give me on the ellipsis a version number. Store a
Yes.
copy of the PBX file as a version directly in the PowerBI.com service because I know
Yeah.
you're already reading it and ripping it apart.
Yeah.
So just
Even
store
if-
the file and say, if I want to revert to it, I can revert to it. Like
and give it
Even
the
if there's a
admin-
limitation on that, dude, like fine, give
Yeah,
me like
give me the
5,
last 5.
whatever.
Yeah.
Give me the hardcore. Like I can only store 5
it's
versions.
blob
Fine, I'm
storage.
good with
It
that.
doesn't even
I'm good.
matter.
Yeah.
But it does that. I agree. Like the DevOps, like deployment
Could you
pipelines
imagine seeing? Yeah.
should be the version control
100%.
solution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It should support all of that.
Yes.
It should be
100%.
so it should be so easy both from the admin side to say like show me both versions, like both pages compared to each other, just like a like a Word document.
I'm gonna build you
And
the,
then two, yeah,
I'm gonna
and
build you
then
the future right now. Here's the future
Yeah.
right now. Go get. So we've already made the link to Azure Blob Storage. It's already inserted. You can already use it for data flows. You can already use it for backing up data models. Give me the same thing, same SharePoint location. Make a new folder. Don't care. Stick it on a pipeline. Everything you upload goes directly to that blob storage. Stored as a version number. Boom, done.
All right,
and
Mike,
then-
I'll give you
And
$10.
then in the pipeline, every time I'm promoting something, I'm just going back to that PBIX file, and then I'm actually just doing like pick up that file and then read it to the next level. And so then do all the same. No infrastructure needs to change on the how you read or decompress that file or put it into. I don't even care. Put a thin wrapper on top of this that just gives me
Mhm.
all the files, and you can. I don't know. I don't even freaking care. Call it deployment pipelines, and in there, every single workspace that has links to these files, just make a workspace name and just keep putting files in there. I don't
Yeah.
care.
And just give it the owner, because there are roles in Workspace. Last thing I'll say, hey, a new app version is ready to go.
Boom.
Why don't you check it, approve it,
Yeah,
and
done.
allow a certain person?
Exactly.
Yeah, I love it. So
So-
I'll give you $10. You can build it, Mike.
It's hard though, because there's so much service area now in Power BI. You keep having to like spend less and less money on these features, and it's hard to like pick only like the best 3 or 4 of these. Like it must be so difficult at a high level PM to figure out like what do we spend our time on to get. I mean, again, I think a lot of this is like it's what your metrics are. We've talked about this a lot with our KPIs. What is important to Microsoft? What I think is important to Microsoft is monthly active users. More people using the tool, more people in there consuming and sharing reports. That's important. So if deployment pipelines are not driving more monthly active users, I think it's going to be hard for them to keep putting a lot of money on that. They just kind of have to slowly trickle out, $5, $10 at a month or a quarter, whatever, of investment to kind of keep seeing them maturing and then hoping that like the monthly active users in that particular feature still goes up, right? Yeah. I think that's what we're eventually going to see. Anyways, we've gone pretty good. I think we've been pretty even on everyone's time. We've done about 20 minutes per person. So with that, I think this is a good ending point. Unless there's any, is there any final thoughts, any final wrap-ups?
I don't.
I'll give kind of one wrap-up. I think it's much credit to the Power BI team. They've done a really good job maturing the product. They're definitely working hard at listening to the community. So definitely give them mad kudos there. I'll also say, even me going through this exercise, this is doggone hard. Like it's like picking which child you like to live or not. Like it's difficult. I don't.
Jeez. I thought it's just one you like the most, not not to live.
I mean, you have to spend a little bit of time on all these things, and it's so hard to distribute time and work, and where's that make the most sense for investment, and we want to keep things growing. So like, it's hard. And so kudos Microsoft. You've done a great job on the tool. I think you're doing a great job improving it. I love the direction you're going with a lot of things. We whine about how we would break out the money and spend things in different areas. And I think you already, there's nothing here that we were saying that you don't already know. But I love the direction you're taking here and the fact that you're listening and continually improving the product. It's a great product. And with that, if you like this podcast and you had a chuckle or two, or you liked arguing with whatever Tommy said because it was just off the wall crazy to you,
mine. Yeah. Okay.
So if you like the podcast, you enjoyed it, please find someone else who you think might share it and just share it with one other person. That's all we ask. We have a lot of fun talking about these things and just involving the broader community for these discussions. Please feel free to share it. Tommy, where can you find the podcast?
So if you're listening to the podcast right now on Apple or Spotify, you can watch it live 7:30 in the morning, Tuesdays and Thursdays Central Time. Join the conversation in the live chat on LinkedIn and YouTube and any other social media platform. If you're watching us live right now or watching this previous recording, you can listen on Apple and Spotify, record it, subscribe, listen on your runs or whatever you usually do when you listen to podcasts.
Yeah, if you want to go to sleep quicker, just turn on the podcast for a couple hours at night and you will be out like a light.
So you're $5 on what?
My blood pressure doesn't go down when I listen to this.
No.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you on Tuesday.